everybody, welcome to another bonus episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die, DadChat episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. The fans clamor for it, probably because your own fathers ignore you, and so we're here. We're here to be the fathers that to be, and we're here to be proud of you, no matter what, no matter who you are, as long as you are there and you are happy and you are always moving forward. We're proud of you. So put that in your pocket for today. Take that with you. The pod dads are proud of you. Nate, it's December. It's almost Christmas. We're going into the holiday season. Happy Christmas to you, or whatever they celebrate in England. Whatever the Anglicans are into. I don't know if it's some sort of solstice thing, but
no, it's Christmas. Christmas, and then Boxing Day is the day after, is also a holiday.
Okay, what is Boxing Day?
So don't quote me on this exactly, but as I understand it, Christmas is spent with your family and Boxing Day is spent with your friends. So like the actual boxing, I think, is literally like giving people boxes of things. But as I understand from what my mom told me, it's not just a tradition to spend it with your neighbors or your friends, but also like you would give gifts to people in your life, like the mailman or like the milkman or even things like that.
Sure.
You would give gifts. So Christmas was a day off for your family. And often in the olden days, people would go to church on Christmas. Boxing Day was sort of like a fun day, where it's still part of Christmas, but it's not the actual religious ceremony, and it's not, it's not just limited to your family. So when I was a little kid, we lived in Germany, and there was because we lived near the city where Porsche's factory is, where one of its factories is. There were a lot of expat people there from the English-speaking world who worked for Porsche or who worked in the German automotive industry. So through neighbors, we got to know a bunch of British people, South African people, Australian people, Irish people, and they would always celebrate Boxing Day, like have a thing, get together with friends in the neighborhood. But Christmas was off limits because that was family only. And so that's how I understand it. So in the UK, I'm pretty sure we're getting the Monday off. Let me check my calendar because I've got a British calendar on my phone now. I'm pretty sure we get the Monday off after Boxing Day, or for Christmas Day. Let me see. So actually, no, we don't. We don't. We have a substitute bank holiday on Monday the 27th to make up for the fact that Christmas is on a Saturday this year. And yes, we do have a substitute bank holiday on Tuesday the 28th to make up for the fact that Boxing Day is on Sunday. So,
all right, so you still get your days off. That's nice.
Yeah, we get our days off.
I mean, you're a podcaster, so you don't really get any days off ever.
I don't really have a job, and I also don't get any days off in the sense that I'm always working, but I more or less like pick my own schedule.
There's no PTO here in the content mines, unfortunately. You take time off, that means that you're not making content. So just so you know, the things that we do for all of you. The sacrifices your dads make.
Big up to Brian Quimby, who made the point that one of the best things you can do as a podcaster is just like accrue a reserve of timeless content, get it produced, and then take like a fucking month off.
Yes.
Because it's not like, oh, woe is me, whatever. This is my job. And I realize like what we do is entertainment. So I'm not trying to cry about this. It's just more that you do have a hard time separating, when you don't have any other job besides doing content stuff, separating work and not work time. Because there's always something else that's got to happen. Something that's going to be followed up, something that's got to be scheduled. And what I found has been useful for me is to completely unplug on Saturdays. Like I'll watch a movie or I'll read a book on my Kindle, but don't get on Twitter, only do a very cursory email check, and, more or less let myself kind of decompress that way. And then Sunday night I can check. And if I've done my homework, basically all my work for scheduled episodes, like for this Hell of a Way bonus episode, for example, will be scheduled for Monday already. So like I can just take the weekend off and then check stuff as I need to, that helps. But yeah, it can be a challenge because on one hand, it's like, yep, you're living the dream life. You set your schedule based on what you need to do, not having to be in an office, butt in chair at a certain time. But on the other hand, like if you're not butt in chair somewhere working, this shit doesn't get done. And you got to get it done if you're going to, have people subscribe. And so it is work.
this is the downside to, the pure idea of socialism, which is you get paid for your labor, is that when you're not doing labor, you don't get paid. So,
well, yeah, and that's one of the things where
It's,
you want to share the burden too, because I agree. Like the model of socialism isn't necessary. Everyone's a journeyman who only gets paid for the time they're doing their job, because that sucks too. It's just that where we're at right now, there's two of us, so we share the work, and some things I do, some things you do. Similarly with Trash Future. There's things that Milo and I do, there's things that Riley and Alice do, there's things that Hussein does. So ultimately it gets shared. But when you're in a small group like this, it can be hard to give a person who the time off if you don't have redundancy. And so I suppose that's a thing that we have to build into it, especially if if someday down the line Cynthia and I have a kid, I'm gonna have to figure out who's gonna be the hell of a way, who's going to be the alternate dad for DadChat, once I actually become a dad.
It's fine. Look, I have a kid. You figure it out. Like for the first year, they don't do anything. They just kind of lay around. They have 3 needs. If a baby is upset, it's like, are you tired? Are you hungry? Or do you have a dirty diaper? And just the Maslow hierarchy of needs for a 6-month-old is very low. So it's a lot easier to deal with.
Yeah, but there's the whole not sleeping through the night thing.
Yeah, you're fine. You're a soldier. What the fuck, dude?
I'm almost 40 years old. I don't want to fuck.
You were a ranger, man. You can figure it out. Look, I survived it, and I'm a PAO. So, and I was in my 30s when I was dealing with it. So you'd be fine. And the thing is that when you have your own kids, it doesn't feel as bad, because a child fucks with your brain chemistry to a point where you feel if you're a person who's just man, I don't like kids, but then you have your own kid, you're just I don't like kids except for my kid. That's because your kid's fucking with your brain chemistry. Which is a positive thing. I'm not trying to,
no, I get it.
You should love your child, but it becomes a lot easier once you have your own kid, and then you'll kind of fall into a routine and everything. But also it's a perfect excuse to get out of things. People are like, oh, you won't come to this party, do some Charlie. Oh, I got a kid, I can't do that. Oh, you got to Charlie, so you can't do that, and you always have a built-in excuse. Even if your wife's just no, I watched the kid, man, you can go do whatever. It's no, I'm here for you.
I'm not going to go do drugs with British people in their 20s. Yeah, that's not my thing.
Nah, it's not.
Not really my thing. I'm on a weird wave in my life right now where I'm fully sober except for nicotine. You know what I mean? Literally, nicotine and caffeine are the only substances that I take at all. I vape nicotine and I drink coffee in relative moderation. On days when I'm feeling really tired, like today, I'll have 2 coffees and then I'll have a cup of tea, and that's it. Because otherwise, it's getting to the point where even tea, I'll lie awake at night, not able to sleep for a long time. And it's when I started backing off it and just having coffee in the morning and no other caffeine and only 2 coffees max, I started sleeping. I go to bed and I'd be asleep in 20 minutes. That had never happened before. And same, no alcohol. I just stopped smoking weed because it's not that I don't like weed. It's that weed gives me memory loss and also makes me grumpy, which sucks. And maybe there's some magical strain you can use that solves that problem, but this is not a country where weed is legal, and so the strain of weed you get is weed, and
you get weed flavored weed,
and so I just stopped doing it. I've been off weed probably about a month now, and yeah, man. I mean, it's different. It's weird. It's total sobriety, total lucidity, but I'm hoping that I just kind of carry that forward, because I do find that getting shit done's easier, knuckling down, getting tasks done, doing things like vacuuming around the house, doing all the dishes immediately, not leaving stuff for later. That's actually getting easier somehow. And so I need to be in that brain space, because we are planning on trying to have a kid. And, it's if that we are successful in that, or if we adopt, Lord knows I'm going to need to be. And I'm not worried about loving kids, bro. I mean, I had a weird story, but, when I was in Alaska, one of my soldiers was, he had a big, huge family problem where his wife just bounced and left him with 2 kids.
Ooh.
And he got kicked out of the army for family care plan. He just didn't have one. And he was trying to make it work. But imagine, a E4 fires guy with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old in an airborne infantry company trying to make it work. And it just wasn't working. And he tried some arrangements with some people in the neighborhood, and they fucking neglected those kids. They neglected those kids in a way that I have seen some fucked up things in my life. I think kids being maltreated fucks me up the most. And he asked for help cleaning up the place after he threw this chick out who had been neglecting these kids, but she was supposed to be watching them. And what I happened upon in his apartment was a room in which his 2-year-old daughter and 4-year-old son had been locked up for anywhere from 24 to 48 hours at a time. The woman had just like put food in there.
Ooh.
And it's not that it was a mess. It's okay, they're kids, it's a mess. It was the palpable despair of it all.
Mm-hmm.
That you could see how much it, like, imagine locking a 4-year-old in a fucking room for 24 hours and leaving the house, and what do you think is going to happen? But how are they going to feel?
Right.
And like, how to describe this? Like, obviously poop and pee everywhere, food rubbed into the carpet, markers all over the carpet and baseboards, like picture books like torn up and shredded into tiny, like very neurotic, tiny little pieces. Just like an incredible worry.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense?
Yeah.
And like, the boy was really neurotic for a while. He really did not like being cooped up indoors. The girl was she just stopped talking, but she was always in a good mood. She just stopped talking. And it was a weird situation. And that guy, he never really got it right. I don't think he kept custody of his kids. I think his parents or his siblings stepped in. He died not too long ago from bad health from being a heroin addict. So it's a real sad situation. Those kids are teenagers now. I haven't seen them. They wouldn't remember me, but I, used to babysit them along with some of the guys all fucking dudes from my company who all lived in the same apartment complex in Anchorage, Alaska. And I'm telling this story because, like when you said that, if you're a person who doesn't like kids, I didn't necessarily think I didn't like kids, but I just was sort of indifferent to kids. But once you're in a situation where like you can see how much they need you, like they're in a situation where they really don't have anybody sort of like taking care of them and watching out for them. Like if the hand of God had stepped in and been like, Nate, you're now their dad, like I would have taken care of those kids for the rest of my life and I wouldn't have felt bad at all. I wouldn't have felt inconvenienced at all. It was such a profoundly affecting and upsetting experience. Like I said, I saw some fucked up shit in Afghanistan that's worse. I mean, I had bad shit happen, but like there was something particularly affecting about that situation and I have never forgotten it.
There's something about like when you see what somebody is willing to do to like not only a person that's helpless, but a person that like relies on them.
Yeah,
like war is war, and it's fucked up, and people do war for various reasons. But like for the majority of it, like it's adult-ish people. Like, I'm not, obviously there's child soldiers, but that's really not the whole child soldier thing was not really a big thing in Afghanistan. I mean,
they were underage in a lot of cases, but they weren't little children. They were, we're
not talking 10-year-olds or something.
We're talking 13 to mostly 16, 17, 18. Yeah.
Right.
Which is old enough to be a soldier in the British Army.
Exactly.
Which is not to say that that's not child soldiers, but more that it's different. When you think child soldiers, you think of stories of like, 12-year-olds in Burma being made to fight, that it wasn't that.
Right. And it is just, because I have a 6-year-old and the idea of helplessness and to just do like nothing for them is just, it makes absolutely no sense to me.
I mean, in their dad's defense, as much of a fuck up as he was, like he wasn't, when he found out this woman had been doing this, he threw her out of the house immediately. Like he wasn't okay with it.
Right.
He was an idiot to be like, oh yeah, a random 18-year-old girl that I'm sort of dating, you can stay rent free if you watch my kids for me. Yeah. And not expect that was going to go badly. But like he was trying. It's just like I was trying to be nosy. I wasn't trying to insert myself in something. But when you walk into that situation and you see what's going on, you're like, ooh, these kids need help. They fucking need help. And I don't know. People have asked me when I've told this story in the past, like, why didn't you go to social services? And it's just like, well, in the state of Alaska, like, what the fuck do you think is going to, like, the goal of that shit is to keep kids with their parents anyway. Like, what do you think was going to happen? Like, they weren't going to do anything.
It's like asking you, why didn't you report that war crime? Like, I fucking probably did. Like
I said, I when it came to stuff where people were doing shit illegal in my unit, I did report it and nothing happened. But in this case, like, I had always hoped that this guy would get it together for his kids because he did seem like he really cared. And if he was in a place with family support, then maybe it would work out better. But it seems like that wasn't the case. And yeah, so now, it's so fucked up, man. Like they got abandoned by their mom. They went through all that, and now they're not neither of them is over 18, and their dad's dead. Like it's fucked, and that shit. I don't know.
Hey, let's talk about something happier than that. I don't know what we wanted to go into. I do love this. Did you take a look at that picture of the A10 Camaro that an Air Force kid was driving at 131 miles an hour?
Give me 1 second. I'm trying to see if I can find it.
It is every like. I know, like, I saw this discussion happening. How, like, people make fun of soldiers for getting these Camaros and these cars that are ridiculously outside of their price range. But like in the Army, you have to have a car because, like, what public transportation is there on a military base that will get you to PT at 5:30 in the morning?
There's
nothing. There's absolutely nothing.
Your public transportation in the Army is you live above where they meet for PT and you walk outside. And if you live in on-post housing, you either walk or you ride a bike or you more often than not drive. And if you live off-post, you have to have a car.
Yeah, you have to have a car. So this guy has a Camaro with a spoiler on it, like one of those bolted-on spoilers, and just a whole bunch of Air Force D. Like, I've never seen somebody so proud of being in the Air Force, and I really hope this guy is actually an A-10 pilot. I don't think that he is.
I mean, looking at this kid's hair,
I was just going to say, like, I feel like I don't know who he ripped this off from or where he got this car wrap done or what, but like it's getting the airborne tattoos before you actually jump out of an airplane. It's like, you should make sure that you can do that first, buddy. Because I can't. I watched a video the other day of like a Russian soldier who had to be like forcibly thrown out of an airplane because he was freaking out, and people were like, "Oh my god, it's so mean." It's like, let me tell you how they do it in the Army airborne too. They will throw you the fuck out of the airplane because you have to. If you don't go, that means everybody else can't go. Isn't that right? You jumped out of airplanes.
Yeah, I mean, you can.
If I freaked out on an airplane, if I was on the chalk and I was like, I'm not going to jump. Are they just like, all right, you can sit down? Are they going to do that for me?
Sort of. I mean, it throws shit into a loop. Basically, if you refuse to go, they're going to pull you aside and sit you down. But like, obviously, the guys behind you are going to have a hard time getting out the door, and there's a limited amount of time on the drop zone. I mean, it depends on where you are. There was recently a video someone shared of people doing a mass tactical airborne operation in, I think, at Fort Bragg, and they were doing four birds basically parallel with each other, dropping people. Like, it was a huge drop zone. But where I was at, drop zones were smaller just because Alaska's not exactly full of easily accessible flat areas, and at least not southeastern Alaska. And so if you had a jump refusal, I mean, we had a very limited amount of time on that drop zone before we had to do another circuit. What would normally happen is they would pull you, they'd sit you down immediately, and they would check your equipment. And if there was something wrong with your equipment and you could go, you would go. If there was anything wrong with your equipment, then they would keep you on the plane, get everybody out as much as they could, and then land. And then one of the roles of what's called the DACO, the Departure Airfield Commanding Officer, is the reason why you have to be jump master qualified to be a DACO, is that part of your role is if there is a jump refusal, you have to be the final word on doing what's called a jump master preliminary inspection, I think is what JMPI stands for. I can't remember. Basically, JMPI is a really, really strict thing. Like, Pathfinder School is the closest thing to this, but JMPIing is even stricter. I think that it's basically where they teach jump masters to check all of the basic parachute harness rig to see if there are any deficiencies. So like, they check everything. They check, and you just learn to memorize. It's hard because it's Army shit, but also it's hard because it's a big safety thing. Like, you know what I'm talking about? You check, but you have to memorize the nomenclature for everything.
Yeah, you gotta. There's gonna be fancy words for everything, and like parachute. The parachutes now are very complicated.
Yeah, and even when they were T10s, they were still really complicated, and so it's like weapons. It would be like deficiency, and then it would be something like nylon webbing or something like that, hook and pile tape not attached. Like, you have to memorize the nomenclature. We had to do that in Pathfinder School too, but it's not really it's not. I don't know how to describe this. In Pathfinder school, there's a whole thing you run through for sling load inspections, and in Air Assault school, if I remember correctly, there are deficiencies on every rig, and you have to find like 3 out of 4, I think, on each rig. In Pathfinder school, there could be as many as 4 or as few as 0, and you have to inspect the entire rig, and you can't just call out deficiency. You have to write down on a piece of paper what the deficiencies are. And so that means you have to memorize all the nomenclature, and you have to get really familiar with those rigs. And Pathfinder is a short school. It's like 2.5 weeks long. Jumpmaster School is, I think, 3 weeks long. It's similar. JMPI, the reason it's so stressful is because they make it stressful. You have to memorize a ton of fancy wordings for shit. You cannot say the wrong thing. It has to be verbatim. And you also have to actually learn the safety part, which is checking to make sure everything is in place the way it's supposed to be. So like you spend days just rotating through jumpers rigged up in a certain way to find deficiencies and stuff. It's not an easy school. I never went to Jumpmaster School.
Did you ever find a path?
You know, hilariously, I actually did use Pathfinder School stuff a couple of times in my career after I graduated, which was weird because I was an officer. Like I thought I would never do this, but when I was an assistant S3. When I was in S3 Air, I mean, kind of in Alaska, like planning helicopter stuff for training, but a lot of my stuff kept getting scrapped because of bad weather. But in Korea, actually, I don't know if I told you this, I did actually have a moment where the training kicked in with Pathfinder School. It's very funny. So there are 2 different kinds of sling sets for sling loading things. There's a 10K and a 25K. So basically 10,000 pounds or 25,000 pound sling set. And the best way to describe it is a 10K sling set, the sling legs have the thickness of maybe a little bit thicker than a garden hose. And on a 25K, it's like a fire hose. They're huge.
Mm-hmm.
And the issue with that is that, you know, with up armored stuff, like, okay, sling loading an empty water buffalo, sling loading like a 500-gallon fuel blivet, you can do that with a 10K sling set. But even the lightest up armored Humvee is 11,500 pounds.
And for those of you who don't know the nomenclature, sling loading is when you have it dangling underneath your helicopter.
Hang something off a hook on the bottom of a helicopter. It's a way of doing logistic shit in a helicopter when the helicopter could carry the stuff in terms of its max capacity, but there's just not enough room inside the helicopter. You can use a helicopter to pick stuff up. It's cool as shit, but it's really
cool training.
complicated.
We did DISCA training like that, where like reserve and local authority worked together, and we flew a Chinook in, and we learned how to hook stuff up underneath a helicopter that's hovering just underneath you. It's fun and scary, and it's one of the few Army things that you get to do that you're just like, I feel good about doing that because like nobody died and I didn't have to shoot anybody.
It is really cool, actually. And you want to hear a crazy story because you talk about Chinook coming in doing that in 2003, I think. A Chinook went down in Afghanistan. Like they had engine problems and they had to do an emergency landing. And then they got all the guys out. They did CSR'd all the guys out of there immediately. But then there was a question of like, what do we do with this fucking helicopter? Because it can't stay here. And I mean, I'm sure they either damaged it or zeroed out everything in there and took all the man portable stuff out that they could. But they're like, what are we gonna do with this fucking helicopter? And so what they decided to do was they found a mining company in like Mongolia or Kazakhstan that had a Soviet Mi-26, which is the biggest helicopter on the planet. It's like the Antonov AN-227 or the Spruce Goose of helicopters. It's a single rotor system with 8 blades. It is fucking gigantic.
Yeah, and it's those helicopters that look like it's a cockpit and then some skinny, like there's nowhere to sit other than piloting it. Is that the one you're thinking of?
No, I'm thinking of the one I'm talking about. One of them got shot down in the Second Chechen War, and there were 168 people on board. It is a huge fucking helicopter, and it's got a huge cargo hold. In the Soviet Union, they had a passenger service version of it that had like airline seats inside it. Because it's so big, you can fit those. So they flew an Mi-26 down to Afghanistan, and they slung load a Chinook. They literally took the blades off the Chinook, strapped all of them down, got it ready for flight, and then they picked up a Chinook with this Soviet helicopter and carried it back to Bagram to be repaired. Like, you can do that. Like helicopters, big helicopters are some of the coolest things on the planet. Like, all right, I'm a big goofy nerd about this stuff. But anyway, helicopters are cool. So now we close the parentheses about what sling loading is and a cool sling loading story.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the picture of the Mi-26. I was thinking of a different one.
You're thinking about the Mi-17, the hip.
Yeah, this is the big baby with the big. It's and which is kind of the same concept, except this is for troop carrying. You can put people inside of it.
Yeah. So like when the shit got shot down in Grozny, they were overweight, like they were over capacity, but the helicopter was still able to successfully take off. It's just that someone shot it with a surface to air missile and it burned in. So like 168 odd guys died, but they were all riding on one helicopter. When I was in Korea, we were doing these air assault operations, which was hilarious because we were a heavy unit. But for some reason, they just love tormenting the Bradley companies by making them do air assaults. And it's like, they are Bradleys. They're supposed to ride in their big tank cars and shoot things. Like, why are you taking their dismounts out and making them do, I don't know. Stupid.
Because fuck y'all, that's why. Because all the light infantry guys got to do all the walking, and they see the Bradleys and they see the armor guys, and they'd be like, I got in a tank so I could walk. So you got some fucking big dick lieutenant colonel that's just like, all right, now all the Bradley guys got to walk for some reason. And you say that, but remember Joe Kasabian, notably a tanker who did a whole lot of on foot infantry shit. So
yeah, well, getting deployed as a tanker is different, but like in Korea, when you're actually doing tank training, and if I remember correctly, we managed to get those tank fuckers to work on this mission too, because we basically did a mission where we did an air assault to bring guys in, where the idea was you air assault your dismounts in, and they clear the high ground forward of any anti-tank positions so that this narrow defile road in the middle of the valley where the tanks are going to travel can be secured from. Because if you don't do that, then guys could shoot tanks with anti-tank rounds, disable a tank, and then that whole axis of advance is blocked. Because you got a big fucking tank in the road that's 70 tons or 78 tons or however much an Abrams weighs. So it was, in a sense, a realistic mission. I mean, I would think in more real life, you would drive up in a column and then the Bradley dismounts would get out and then climb the hills and they'd clear that way. But what we decided to do was make a stupid scenario where they'd be brought in by helicopter, they'd do this shit, and then they'd meet their Bradleys at the end, and then they would do like an actual Bradley mission with the tanks. So part of the mission was because they just wanted high sex training. My battalion commander was like, let's bring a command post Humvee out. And let's just say getting the logistics, the not air assault, not attack companies of this aviation battalion to work with us was not easy. But finally I was like, look guys, I need you to bring a 25K sling set, bring it out. We're going to rig up a Humvee for sling loading, and they're going to bring this thing, to the training site, literally carry a Humvee dangling over, towns and cities in Korea, and then put it down in this training site and do the mission. So anyway, I get out there to inspect it because we had some air assault or, sling load course qualified guys. And I was like, all right, cool. You guys take the manual, rig up the Humvee according to the manual. And then I'll come out, me and a couple of guys who are Pathfinder qualified will come out and we'll inspect your sling load. Or at least inspect. One of us will inspect the vehicle before you start sling loading it, and then
we'll wiggle the ropes.
Yeah, check everything because it's basic stuff like gas tank full or completely empty. Everything locked down, hand tight, windows taped, windshield taped, steering wheel tape, or 550 cord and locked in place. Handbrake. I think handbrake's got to be on. Vehicle's got to be in neutral. Lights are taped. Headlights are taped. Lots of stuff, so you can't create any what we call FOD, foreign objects and debris. Doors, if I remember correctly, doors have to be locked shut, or if not padlocked. Actually, they can't be padlocked because if you don't have the keys, you're fucked. But they have to be locked, closed, locked, and I'm pretty sure you tie them shut. I can't remember everything because it's been a long time. So if I'm making mistakes out there, Pathfinder instructors, I'm sorry. Why the fuck are you listening to this show? You probably hate everything I say. Anyway, so I get out there, right, to do the sling load inspection, and the minute I touch the sling load rope, it's like, oh, fuck no. Can you guess what the problem was?
The wrong kind of rope?
Wrong kind of set. Yeah, they gave us a 10K set for an 11,500 pound vehicle. They needed a 25K set. And like I said, when you know what you're looking for, like when you have to swing the 25K rope, like it's like doing fucking rope swings in the CrossFit gym. It's a big ass rope. It's a rope, but it's insulated, so it's like a cord. It was completely wrong. And so we had to scrap the whole thing. I was like, I just told the town commander and the S3, I'm like, listen, I'm sorry, but these motherfuckers gave us the wrong sling set. There's not enough time for them to go back to what is it? I think Tegu, and where they were based out of, and get another one and come back. And it's like, if you rig this vehicle with this set they gave us and you lift off, hopefully it will break before it fucking gets more than a foot off the ground. But chances are good it'll hold long enough to then break and fall and land on a Korean village and kill some people. So like, you cannot lift off with this sling leg set.
Right. Now you can fly around over empty area while we videotape it falling off of your helicopter for the YouTube post. But other than that, we don't want to kill some Koreans with our Humvee. Yeah. Like people. Look, we're bad. The Army's bad enough, like driving the damn Humvees. You don't want to be like, well, you stay off the road, you'll be safe from Humvees, and then one just fucking falls out of the air on you.
Yeah, man, it's wild, right? Like it's funny to me how stressful it is, in the sense that what's it called here? It's wild to me because a lot of this stuff is pretty common sense. Like, you do it by the book because it's a safety thing. Like, you everything that could potentially break and turn into FOD because FOD is dangerous because it can fall and hurt people on the ground. But more importantly, it's dangerous because if it gets fucked up in the engine intake in the aircraft you're in, well, then you got a really big problem.
Right. So, the Chinook has jet engines on it, yes. So you don't want debris.
And they've got an intake, and they've got fucking exhaust, and it's like when anything like that is such a huge deal that people who've been in this job know this, but when you cross a military airfield or you enter a military airfield in a civilian vehicle, like, you have to mandatory, you stop and you go and you get out of the car and you check all the wheels under the car, bumper, trunk, or truck bed if it's a truck, everywhere for FOD, because it's just possible you've got shit down there. And whether or not it's like a plastic bag or like something more serious, it's the same reason why you take your hats off when you get around helicopters and you put them in your pocket. Because if that thing sucks it off and it goes in the engine, you fuck that engine. And it's like, it's one thing when it's on the ground. If it's taking off, like that's a huge safety violation. You know what I mean? Like that can kill people. And so it's super, super strict. And so in a way, it's funny to me because Pathfinder School being so short, you cram so much stuff into it that it's like teaching the test, and it's hard because the test is hard. But like, it's such a pump and dump exercise that I genuinely think that people wind up not internalizing all of the safety stuff because it's so fucking hard and because it's so fast. And it's like, but then here are these skill sets that like are useful. Like, it's useful to know how to plan stuff for helicopters. It's useful to know how to plan, integration between fixed wing and rotary wing aircraft, the logistics involved with stuff, all these things, like whether it's planning the touchdown points, like how would you space out touchdown points for a formation of aircraft, to like the different kinds of attachments you can use to a sling load hook, because there's lots of different things you can use. That's all really useful. And what it winds up happening is you cram the fuck out of this stuff. You pass these insanely stressful tests. You get the coolest badge in the Army. And then every other time in your career, when you have to do anything involving helicopters, you go get the manual because you don't remember any of it.
Which is why everything in the Army has a technical manual or a field manual, because every soldier needs everything fucking written down, which is a good thing. Like, I'm not like, there's never any question of like, well, how do I wear this uniform? We have a whole fucking thing on how you wear that uniform.
How do I put a condom on? Don't worry, there's a training circular for that. How do I wash my ears? There's a training circular for that.
Probably. I had to take a training course on how to make coffee one time because I just didn't know how to make coffee. I was 20 years old in Afghanistan. I didn't know how to make coffee, but I worked the night shift and they demanded that I make coffee for them in the morning.
One time I dumped an entire bag of coffee into a silver bullet and made it with like 1.5 liters of water and made the strongest coffee in the world as a joke. And then I was like, well, this is all right. I had like 2 cups, and I've never had coffee or caffeine overdose before in my life. That is not pleasant at all. That is like, caffeine overdose is like the most splitting headache you've ever had in your life. And stuff that would make it work its way out of your system is even worse. I went to the gym thinking if I worked out in the gym, it would get like out of my system. Like that's how much of a 20-something-year-old dumbass I was. I was like, oh wow, I've really poisoned myself with stimulants. I'm gonna go lift weights and I'll feel better. I was
obviously the problem is you have too much energy and you need to go expend it in the weight room and throw it all up on the floor.
I went back to my room and I told the soldiers, I'm like, I'm really sorry guys, could we turn the light off? Like, it's like 9 p.m. I'm like, I'm fucking dying here. I'm just sick. And I woke up the next morning and I felt okay. And I was like, I will never do that ever again. because that like there is such a thing as too much caffeine, believe it or not. And yeah, so I get you, man. I get you on the needing to learn how to make coffee. I mean,
And I think it was also because I was with the 25th ID, so they were the PAO office I was in. The major was importing like expensive Kona coffee. So she's like, please stop fucking with my expensive coffee. That's very nice. Here, just because what I did, it's an instant coffee. Well, not instant, it's the drip coffee thing. So, and I didn't know, just put like, put like 2 scoops in it. So I just filled it up to the brim with coffee and just slapped it in there. And then like coffee, water, just like I did that and I hit the switch and then people started showing up. I'm like, I'm making coffee for you guys. I'm going to go to our, the 8 a.m. battle update brief and do the thing. And I came back and like everything was, like, in Community when Troy goes and gets the pizza and comes back and everything's on fire. It's like that, but with coffee. So everybody's just like, what the fuck did you do? I'm like, I made coffee. What are you talking about? Like,
Francis, what's your mechanism of making coffee now? Because I feel like I've traveled the whole gamut over the years.
I use a French press. I had a glass French press that I got from IKEA that and eventually I dropped and it broke. So I went on friggin' Amazon like a year and a half ago, and I bought this like double walled. It's called Mueller with a umlaut over the U. It's this nice double walled thing, and like I'm probably drinking too much coffee, to be honest, because like this thing gives me 2 big cups, and I'm actually already done. I've drank 2 cups of coffee during the course of this podcast, but I don't drink any more caffeine or coffee throughout the rest of the day. Like maybe I'll have Coke later, but that's I found that is the ritual that I enjoy doing. Everybody's got their morning ritual of making whatever to get them going, and I boil the water in like in a pan or in a pot on the water. I have whole bean coffee that I grind and pour into the thing. So it doesn't take very long, but it does require my attention. And then afterwards I take the grounds out, swish it around with water, and put it into my compost and everything. So and my mom asked me. She sent me a text like a week ago asking me if she's like, do you drink coffee? And I said, yes, I drink it every day. So I'm interested to see what that means for my mom and what she's going to get me. But yeah, the French press is really like, it's easy. It doesn't require anything being plugged in. And it's small. It's easy to clean. I don't have to deal with filters or anything like that. So it's very like, I like that it's, environmentally friendly. I don't know. It's just it's just what I've discovered that I enjoy doing. And the times when I don't have coffee, that's when I get my caffeine headaches because my body starts to reject itself, which was really bad when I got my 3rd Moderna shot, and then I went to bed with the chills and I woke up still sick. And so I didn't drink any coffee that morning because I was just feeling like ass. And then about 1:00 in the afternoon, I started to get that caffeine headache from not drinking caffeine because I'm addicted to caffeine. So that was fun. I had to like make a cup of tea and just like slam that down to keep the caffeine monkey off of my back.
I would say sometimes for shit like that, Excedrin can be good just because you can take
it's got caffeine. The stuff that's got the caffeine in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife takes that for when she gets migraines, so we always have it around. But I just drink the coffee. I just feed the addiction. Like I've cut out so many addictions. I've quit smoking. I've quit drinking. I also like I haven't quit weed, but I have cut it back to like, I don't hit my weed vape until like 9:00 at night or so after I've done everything that I need to do and the kid's in bed and I have nothing else to do, so I can smoke weed and read a book now. So, the things that happen as you get older and your body starts breaking down and everything. But
yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's whatever. Like I thought it would be angrier about it, but as it turns out, it's fine. I'm perfectly fine with just being comfortable. So that's what I shoot for.
I feel like I have traveled such a weird journey on coffee preparation methods over the course of my life. Because I've done just about everything besides. I mean, I had somebody who had a Chemex who I was friends with, and we'd make it at his place, and it's not that different than pour over coffee and with like a pour over filter holder and stuff. But I've done coffee machine. As a kid, my dad makes coffee the way Germans do, so he has like a what you call like a cafetiere or like a thermos, and he puts like a filter holder on top. and puts like really finely ground coffee in the filter and then pours water over it. He probably makes it too hot of water. Coffee's a little bit bitter, but whatever. That's how he makes it. My uncle was a chef at one point, and he, brought a French press, and so my parents saw that. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That's like the real way to make coffee. So I had a French press for a long time. I had a stainless steel, like a Nissan. I don't think it's the same Nissan as the car company, but maybe it is. But they have like an insulated coffee press, and it was funny because in college one time, the only coffee I could find at this corner shop I used to buy stuff at in Bloomington was Cafe Du Monde. So it's like coffee and chicory, which is an interesting flavor. Like, it's not bad at all. It's just different. But I made it that way. I made instant coffee. I'm a big fan of Nescafe, of just instant coffee. It's not bad. Like, instant coffee is different, but it's actually good, I think. When I was in the Army, there were times when the easiest way, when I was getting up at 5 a.m. or 4:30 a.m., was just boiling water, Nescafe, and some powdered milk, or back when I consumed dairy, or half and half. And maybe that's Ranger coffee, who fucking knows, but like, Nescafe is pretty good, so it's all right.
Yeah, it's
I had a timed coffee maker in Alaska. I bought a sexy one where I would grind the coffee the night before and set up the filter and everything, and then it would turn on at 5 a.m. And my alarm was at like 5:15. So I'd get up, coffee was done. I could walk downstairs. First thing I do is just have coffee, and then, get in my truck and go to fucking PT or whatever. And then in Afghanistan, I used that stainless steel coffee press, and it was hilarious. I had a like a PX brand, AFES brand, or whatever. I can't remember what the name of that is, like the super cheap brand they sell in AFES, but electric kettle. So I had and it was funny because it was rated for 110, and I was plugging it into like fucking 240 on Afghan generator power, and so
it was really boiling.
Oh, that thing boiled water like no one's fucking business, man. It was great. Might have come close to melting the cables, but it boiled water. Yeah, and then when I want to say when I was in New York one time visiting a friend on like a 4-day. He took me to Blue Bottle, and I saw them doing like the Japanese style pour over, which is, it's Japanese people love coffee and they have lots of interesting ways of making it. So I did that for a long time, like pour over to make a pot of coffee. And weirdly, since I moved to the UK, coffee is pretty popular here, but they don't make it with filters very much. It's almost all espresso. And so our first year here, we bought like a cheap espresso maker for our kitchen that has like a little steam wand. And I got used to that. And then sort of like my gift to myself after probably about month 8 of dealing with lockdown shit and the pandemic was I bought like an actual nice espresso maker. And so that's what I do every morning. I have a grinder, press a button, grind out a shot of coffee. The grinder's got like a mount so you can plug just stick the portafilter for your espresso maker in there, and it just rests, catches all the coffee, tamp it down, do that, make a thing, and have a flat white or a cappuccino, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And it's great. It's genuinely great. Like, my take on coffee is that coffee is better than no coffee, and it does not matter. It has to be really, really badly made for me to be like, this coffee is too bad to drink. That almost never happens. My take is, like, for all the coffee snob shit you can do, and like, it does make a difference. Like, there are things you can do to make a difference. At a certain point, it's such a fine dialing in that it's really not as big of a deal. Like, it's like what your preference is, and maybe you taste a difference, maybe you don't. But obviously, like, it's good to me. It's good to, good to have whole bean coffee, grind it fresh, that kind of thing.
Coffee's a lot like pizza. It's where you can get really, really good coffee, but you can also just get regular coffee that's perfectly fine. Like, the only bad coffee I've ever drank was when I went on a 2-week with the Army, and I was the only one smart enough to like pack the coffee maker and everything, but the can of Folgers I think was about 3 or 4 years old at that point. Yeah, so it was really stale, and you could really taste the stale coffee on that.
Oh my god,
nothing is Riley, so it's just like we gotta go to the PX and get something.
Nothing is
fresh.
Worse than when you're out on a field problem and like the 20-year-old cook doesn't drink coffee and he has no idea how coffee is supposed to taste, so he puts like lukewarm water in with like those big coffee tea bags they put in the Mermites or whatever the big things, and it comes out and it's just like this is like coffee flavored rainwater. Like, it's not the right thing. I remember I told one of the cooks one time, I was like, I'm sorry, like, I'm not trying to be that guy, but like, listen, you can ignore me if you want to because I'm a stupid second lieutenant, but like you got a lot of NCOs in this company who are big time coffee drinkers, and the minute that they get this, you're gonna get it a lot worse from them than you get it from me. I'm just telling you, this coffee tastes like piss. Y'all really got to get someone who knows how to make coffee to make this. And like, man followed my advice, and I mean, I think he appreciated it, but he still gave me shit every time. He's like, when I walk into like where the cook shop was, and he'd just be like, sorry, sir, we ain't got no ass coffee today. It's just like, look, man, I'm trying to save you. I'm polite. I'm apologetic. The minute this salty E7 with fucking 3 divorces comes in and he tastes this stuff, you're going to get the truth from that man. You are going to get the honest opinion, and it's not going to be as nice as me.
There's only one joy that an NCO has on a field op, and that's when he wakes up and nobody else is awake and he has a quiet cup of coffee. And if you fuck with that moment of zen, the E7's day is already going to go downhill. But like at least let him start with a high point.
Let him have his coffee and his cigarette because he's like 37 and looks 57 and has 2% body fat. Like, you know the guy, exactly the guy I'm talking about. It's just like the wiry, insane E7 or E8. Like, and the man doesn't really eat. He just lives off of cigarettes, dip, and coffee.
Yeah, occasionally you see him like eating something out of a wrapper, and then that's it. You'll see, but also somehow runs like a 14-minute 2-mile.
Yeah, he runs a 14-minute 2-mile, and then he has like 2 Reese's peanut butter cups, has the worst gas of any human on the planet, and does not consume any more calories the rest of the day.
It's incredibly. It's just the the bell curve of your career. Like when you're a private, you just eat nothing and smoke cigarettes and drink booze and Monster energy drinks, and then like you start to like lift weights like in your 20s. And you're like, oh, I have to learn about nutrition and stuff. And then by the time you're an E7, you're 35, you look like you're 45, and your brain and your body is broken. You're just like, I don't give a shit. Everything I do is fueled by hatred and nicotine. So whatever. I think when we would do field ops, I know one of the ones that we did, the MKT got set up, the mess kit trailer or whatever.
Mobile kitchen trailer.
Yeah, mobile kitchen trailer. And I know both the commander, the captain that we had, one of the first sergeants, everybody is set up. Hey, who do you have waking up at 4:00 in the morning to make coffee? So, hey, do you know what you're doing? Yes? Cool. That's all we need to know. Just make sure. And like, luckily, we also, like, one of our cooks was a master sergeant who had been around for a long time. And he's just like, I know what exactly you guys need. I will have the coffee. At least he's like, I will be up at 4 a.m. making you the coffee. It's like, because that's when I want my coffee too. So don't worry about that. He was great. Master Sergeant Renard, man, he was fantastic. He loved being a cook. He loved cooking for troops. And he loved taking care of because food's like the one happy moment you can have in the military, especially on a field op. And so if they manage to fuck that up too, it's just going to go downhill from there. But Nate, so we have our bonus episode, our Midwestology, the one that was released over on Trash Future. So if you're a Patreon of Trash Future, you probably have already heard it, but it was back in April, I think, that we recorded
April
that.
or May or something like that.
Yeah. So it is a fantastic look into the Midwest with myself and Nate and Joe, all people from different parts of the Midwest, trying to explain things like massive heroin and going to Insane Clown Posse shows, to Milo Edwards, who is a British person who probably has seen his own insane things, considering the amount of time he spent in Russia too. But like Midwest is like its own, like every region has its own like insanity. So we discussed a lot of that, and here's that.
Does L. Ron Hubbard have a cheap, sugary beverage that has somehow become associated with a band that has its own religion? I don't think so.
That's the weird part. I think the part for me, because I was an ICP fan growing up, I grew up dirt poor to a level of poverty I don't think I've seen in the United States until I moved to Hawaii. Like single parent, sometimes you're having sleep for dinner. We didn't have Christmas, things like that. And I see, like if you had pop or soda, whatever the fuck you call it at home, you had Faygo because you could buy a 3-liter for 75 cents. And, ICP in general, they grew up white trash and poor too. So like they use that as their aesthetic, and they said like, you know, they're effectively this is what the Juggalos were, is like, you know, lyrics aside, nobody really gives a shit. Everybody overlooks all the serial killer songs and shit. Like they're literally called horrorcore. And like, you know, we can all hang out, we all can be broke white trash together, and nobody can judge us. So like, and like I say white trash, but it's like quite honestly the most inclusive group I think I've ever seen. Ever.
It's a very strange phenomenon. Their fan base, because it's such an extreme thing, and because like people who tend to be into ICP are really into them, like they have what are effectively like week-long annual meetups, like the Sturgis motorcycle rally, but just because you're into this band, and people just like go there and get high and hang out and drink Faygo and alcohol, and
they all arrive in this one little car and they all get out the back. It's really
well,
cute.
the main difference between the gathering of the Juggalos and Sturgis is even ICP was like, no, COVID's dangerous, we should stay home this year. And Sturgis fucking didn't.
Yo, we might be insane clowns, but you know what's really crazy? The novel coronavirus.
Well, I mean, the thing I would point out too is that like, because their appeal is so distinct, I mean, like if you know anything about them, people who are into them tend to be into them enough to like get tattoos and have stuff marked up with ICP things.
Oh yeah, there's no casual ICP fans. It's not a thing that exists.
Their logo is basically a silhouette of a guy with like a white guy with dreads rocking like a cleaver. And
Okay.
I've seen, so it's like it looks like a guy, it looks like he's doing like a Super Mario jump, but he's got a cleaver in his hand. And I've seen, when I was in the army, I saw soldiers with what's that guy called?
The Hatchet Man.
The Hatchet Man. Yeah. And
even though he is not carrying a hatchet.
It's a cleaver.
yeah, meat cleaver. Yeah. But they call him the Hatchet Man. And he, so I've seen people with Hatchet Man tattoos. I've seen people, obviously, like people with the shit on their cars and stuff. When I was in Korea, there was a shop that did embroidery and sewing, and they made custom patches. And anytime someone asked them to do a custom patch, they kept in examples to be like, you can buy this here. And I saw like they made where you could sub in, instead of your rank that you wore on the center of your uniform, you could put like a Juggalo rank. And it had the Hatchet Man. Yeah. So, I mean, this was in fucking Dongducheon, Korea.
Oh my God.
To be fair, you could get any patch made in Dongducheon, Korea.
Yeah,
that's
Hatchet
100%.
Man is technically equivalent to WO2. It's
And what's kind of weird is like, you know, they became super popular in the white trash circles, which went into an area of Detroit. We talked about a little bit on a different episode. It was like called Downriver, or like where like Kid Rock's from, where it's like everybody kind of looks like Kid Rock and they're all kind of that racist.
Yeah.
It's like Australia.
Yeah, it's Michigan's Australia, which is grim. Though I don't know if they have a specific island they send migrants to. Maybe Mackinac, but they would, like, when ICP found out about that, they like made a whole song called "Fuck Your Rebel Flag" and like made a shirt with them pissing on the Confederate flag, which is huge in that area. Which it's just like, I'm not an ICP fan. I don't like casually play their music in the background or whatever. But like,
you
I
can't
get it.
do that. You have to be an obscene fan, or you have to not listen. Those are the rules.
I get it. I get their appeal,
Whatever
though.
their fucked up ideology is, like, it's an ideology that is A, inclusive, and B, they stick to it. Like, they're not gonna, they're like, no Confederate flags. And somebody shows up, yeah, right? It's like, no, we will fucking violently throw you out of here if you fuck around here with your Confederate flags. Cover up your fucking tattoos.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if a racist showed up to an ICP show, they'd be physically
God,
assaulted. I have no doubt of that.
That's the really weird thing about ICP. I've got to say that is that like a lot of the sort of, because the sort of like brown sludge rock stuff like Godsmack and Three Doors Down and Stained and Slipknot and all these bands, like they were huge in the Midwest. I remember when all that shit was popular, and that was the only thing that was on the radio. The sort of like backwash of Alice in Chains in the Midwest. That stuff was huge.
Allison changed, but if Lane Staley managed to get off heroin.
Yeah,
Nate
basically.
just presiding over, like, angrily looking across the street at the like brimming fucking Slipknot fan club meeting as he solemnly, age 15, presides over like the 2-person level 42 fan club of Indianapolis. It's just like him and some old guy.
Yeah, I love Brit funk. But that's the thing, right? Is that they're emphatically, they are not racist. And like Three Doors Down and those bands were like really into sort of what you might call kind of like apolitical conservatism. Like they were like, we love the troops. Our friends joined the army. They like played shows in Iraq for the USO and stuff like that.
I think Three Doors Down got paid by the National Guard to make a song once.
Oh yeah. There's a there's a
sake.
Three Doors Down like recruiting song that for the National Guard. It's fucking terrible. It's that weird.
Wasn't Three Doors Down the only band to answer like the Trump administration's like invitation for?
I'm not gonna turn down a paid
They were
gig,
just
man.
happy to get a gig, man.
Yeah, fuck it. I mean,
Three Doors Down is actually a reference to sending the National Guard 3 doors down to stay in a hotel because of the 13th Amendment. Wait, no, the Third Amendment.
Third Amendment.
13th Amendment was freeing the slaves. Different amendment.
Three Doors Down's about calling the cops on the house 3 doors down because you saw someone park outside for 5 minutes.
So the point that I would make though is that they unlike a lot of the stuff that would be in the similar wheelhouse. And I mean, I'm really wary of calling shit white trash because I didn't grow up white trash, and my dad kind of like his family kind of did, so he would always get really shitty with me if I used that term. But like the fact of the matter is,
okay, Nate,
like,
you could use it. It's our
yeah,
word.
It's okay. We can reclaim it. But the fact of the matter is, like ICP is absolutely a white trash band that is not racist.
Yeah, they're
like they are anti-racist, and that like weirdly, that's such a. It's like, can you be transgressive in a positive way? Can you, if you live in a shitty society, a shitty like regional society, and you're opposing that society, so you're transgressive, but it's not a negative context. Like they are, for all of their like, yeah, you said like horrorcore was also popular in Southern rap, but it kind of went away. Like there were a few bands, like 3-6 Mafia was into horrorcore. They started, hence the 3-6, like 666, that whole thing, or bands like Gravediggers and stuff like that. But that kind of went away. Whereas ICP started on that same wave and they never left. Their biggest hit, as I'm aware of in terms of like national prominence, was not a horrorcore song, but was rather them being like, what the fuck is a rainbow?
Magnets! How the fuck do they work?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like, he's just a himbo being amazed at he's the human equivalent of golden retrievers who can rap.
That whole song is just about we're surrounded by miracles every day. And he's just like, magnets, I don't give a shit how they work. It's just a miracle. And I respect that.
No, like the song is called Miracles, and I'm going to read you a couple of
fridge is a miracle.
It is. Tell me how a fridge works,
the music
man.
video looks like it's made in MS Paint.
Yeah, I'm going to read you a couple of stanzas from this song. He says, music is a lot like love. It's all a feeling, and it fills the room from the floor to the ceiling. I still see miracles all around me. Stop, look around. It's all astounding. Water, fire, air, and dirt. Fucking magnets. How do they work? And I don't want to talk to a scientist. Y'all motherfuckers lying and getting me pissed. Solar eclipse and vicious weather. 15,000 juggalos together. And I love my mom for giving me time on this planet, taking nothing for granted. So
I have to point out that during the line about his mom in the music video, he's literally like, there is a CGI woman giving birth to an infant that shows everything, and he's wearing clown makeup.
Awesome. You see, that's the kind of shit you learn how to do if you train at l'Académie Gaulier in Paris, right? It's all about breaking down the ego, building it back up again. They did months of like hilarious
We could have kept
pratfalls.
that education in Michigan if Napoleon never sold us.
yeah, exactly. We didn't have to be that much of a shithole.
Yeah, I want to say too, I don't know if you're going to get to it, but we do have to eventually answer the question of what a juggalo actually is.
Exactly, because I use the term. That's what the fans call themselves, and they call their fans. But
it's a kill streak you get in Call of Duty, I believe.
There's a song called "What Is a Juggalo" that goes through it. And France,
God, I forgot about that song.
Is every one of their songs like written in this sort of like preschool tone of voice?
Yes, 100%.
Awesome.
I mean, there's also. Let's put it this way: I respect them for basically refusing to not be morons and also being anti-racist, because like I said, they refuse to sell out in like a compromise how fucking stupid they are way, and also they implicitly or explicitly to their fans are like, you cannot like our band if you're racist, and I respect that a lot. However, like the best way I could describe ICP, and I listened to them when I was a young teenager, is that like, what if Eminem was 100 times dumber? Like that's the best way I could describe it.
What if Eminem never went to Detroit to learn how to rap?
Man, the other day I was fucking out running and an old like an Eminem album track from like the late 90s or early 2000s came on like shuffle on my music, and I just remembered how like for years in the 2000s and like no one was even paying attention to this remotely. Eminem was putting out album tracks that were called like "Yo, is it gay?" brackets to fuck my own ass. And it was like an album with like 3 singles, and then every other track was just like, "Yo, what's up if I go fuck myself in the ass, how would you feel about it?" And then everyone's just like, yeah, cool.
Oh god! Speaking of which, ICP and fucking Eminem hate one another.
Yeah.
And Eminem put out an entire diss. Yeah, he put out a skit of them sucking each other's dicks.
Okay, that's quite good.
Everybody, as always, you can follow me at Army Strang, follow Native in These Deserts, follow the podcast at Hell of a Way. You can get that and more on our Patreon at Hell of a Way to Die. And we also have our online website, which's got store, blog, things like that, hellofawaytodie.com. Feel free to reach out if you got anything you want to talk about. If you think you got some topics for us or something like that, we'd love to hear it. So always feel free to DM or email or anything like that. But other than that, everybody, thank you so much. And Nate, we'll talk to you next week.
Yep. Take care.